Man, Oh Mercy. Remember how that album was so swampy, New Orleans-like, Daniel Lanois producing that album? And then you had Under the Red Sky, which some people really didn't care for. But now Dylan, well, what's up with Dylan now? Now he wants to kind of go back to his old roots? Like, what's the deal here? What does he want to do? Man, a lot of Dylan fans seem to always be so torn on what they really like about him, And even Dylan doesn't even know to even do with his recordings and stuff. And so, what's the deal here? Now Dylan decides to go back, and this is 1991 or 92 after all, and that was it like 20, 30 years ago when he was, when he was a young man. He was only like maybe 20, early 20s. And, Columbia Records puts out his first album. And then he also came out with The Freewheelin' from 63. So at this point, these albums, between 92 and 93, these albums were about roughly almost 30 years old. So it's kind of, really crazy to think, We also had, Times They Are Changing, 64, Another Side of Bob Dylan. So what is Dylan doing here in the early 90s here? Kind of jumping ship and doing what he was doing there, with these 4 albums that he did way back in the early 60s, where he was doing folk covers and, blues standards and, so that's what he's doing here. I'm going to be talking about Dylan's 2, to put it nicely, 2 mixed albums or whatever that people either care for or they rather, see it for what they really are, And that is Good As I've Been to You and World Gone Wrong. Good As I've Been to You came out in November of 92, while World Gone Wrong came out in October of 93. Of course, they did not sell as well as what Dylan really hoped that they would, be released. But the year prior, we had, for every Dylan fan, was this completely bonkers when the first 3 CDs, the first 3 volumes of Bob Dylan's bootleg, the beginning of the bootleg series, if you will, was that prior, early in March of 91. So, well, how did Good As I've Been to You and World Gone Wrong came to be? Well, obviously Dylan felt like he needed to go back. He needed to go back to his roots. He kind of felt like he needed to go back and kind of, do these, what he was doing back in the day, these albums here in similar, fashion or whatever, Of course, this one was all covers, while this one had, a little bit more of his compositions and covers too, But yeah, Dylan felt like he kind of needed to go back. He felt like he wanted to go back in time, back in 62, where he, met John Hammond, and, of course, he produced that first album for him. And now we go 30 years later, and here we are. He's going back to what he was doing. When he was a young man, So these albums, I'm not going to really do like a really extensive review. What I'm going to do is I chose 5 songs from each of these albums, and I'll kind of give it to you, I guess in order, if you will, Not to say that these, I want to put the other songs down, but just, because I feel like these songs feel pretty samey to me. They kind of seem a little, a little bit just like kind of like the debut, kind of, a little bit. So yeah, Dylan, of course, he was, like I said, quite busy or whatever. He had divorced Carolyn Dennis. Of course, Columbia came out with the bootleg series, the first 3 volumes of that. And he also collaborated with David Bromberg. Now, David Bromberg played on Self Portrait, whatever, and he helped Dylan actually mix the album or whatever. And Dylan went to his home in Malibu, and pretty much did like how he kind of did, with the first album, with no other instruments other than Dylan, or no other outside session players or whatever. Just him with acoustic guitar, harmonica, playing out these old songs that date way back to 200 years. These songs are pretty ancient, during this time. So yeah, he was. He felt like he really needed to get back to what he really wanted. The album cover, however, the "Good as I've Been to You," was done by Jimmy Watchill. Watchill also designed the album cover for Bruce Springsteen and David Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young. So that's pretty cool. So recording for "Good as I've Been to You," we're going to start off with that album first. First started recording in Malibu in his home or whatever, from July to August, so kind of the late summer of '92, if you will. And so we'll start with the first song here, which is actually one of the 5 that I choose here. My 5th song here is Frankie and Albert. I really like this song. It says here that Frankie and Albert was inspired by an incident that shocked people in St. Louis in 1899. The song recounts the story of Frankie Baker, who killed her lover named Albert after finding him with another woman. This traditional American popular song was copyrighted by Huey Cannon in 1904. They said that Leadbelly covered the song in 1934. Many other people, including John Hurt, Mississippi John Hurt. So yeah, I really do kind of like this song, It says here that his guitar playing is a bit messy, but he always delivers a magical feeling that overshadows any flaws. So yeah, pretty good one. I like Frankie and Albert. That's my 5th one I choose. My 4th song that I chose from "Good as I've Been to You" is "Blackjack Davy." It says that it was an early 18th century traditional Scottish ballad that became popular across the Atlantic. The song was adapted by a variety of performers under different titles, including the Gypsum Ladies. That's kind of an interesting title. The tale is oft-told, a rich young woman abandons a life of luxury and her family to run off with the gypsies. Pretty good stuff. Woody Guthrie, seemed like he covered it. Really good one. And then we get my 3rd song that I chose as my favorite off of "Good as I've Been to You" is "Sitting on Top of the World." Now it says here that Dylan covered 2 other titles by the Mississippi Sheiks, which I believe they originally did this one, including "World Gone Wrong," which he used for his 1993 album of the same name. So it was done originally by the Mississippi Sheiks. Let's see here. Bo Carter and Walter Jacobs are credited as composers. 1920 song composed by Ray Henderson, Sam Lewis, and Joe Young, and later popularized by Al Jolson. It has a very similar title, "I'm Sitting on Top of the World." Yeah, really good song from there. Of course, Howlin' Wolf did it. Okay, then another one I'd like as now these are my 2 favorite songs here from "Good as I've Been to You." I get confused. So they're both kind of very similar, the albums. Is "Tomorrow Night." I really like this one. It was written by Sam Kozlow and Will Groves. The song became a hit in 1934 with a version by the conductor Harris Hedet. However, it is a bluesman, Lonnie Johnson, who made the song a crossover hit in 1948 for the label King Records. That's kind of interesting. It was also inspired, a long list, Elvis Presley, "Your lips are tender, are so tender, the narrator says to heroine, your heart is beating fast." Yep. His voice is relaxed, blah, blah, blah. So that's my other one there. Okay, then the last one here, as my favorite for Good As I've Been to You, is Froggy Went to Courtin'. This is actually a very old song. The Compliment of Scotland. It was written, well, it was done in 1580. It was listed by Edward White as a most strange wengen of the frog and the mouse. Whether of Scottish or English origin, this folk song mocked Queen Elizabeth I, or Queen Elizabeth I of England, who had a curious habit of calling her ministers or people she met by animal names. Yeah, so it's kind of an old folk tale, I guess, you know. So it kind of says here, the story, however, can be summarized in a few words. A frog with a sword and a pistol in his belt is madly in love with the lovely Miss Mouse and would like to marry her. The young mouse is willing to accept, but must ask permission of her Uncle Rat. Once asked, Uncle Rat runs into town to buy his niece a wedding gown. It's interesting. The wedding feast will take place in a hollow tree, and the guests include a flying moth, a June bug, a bumblebee, a cow, and whatever, just other animals, whatever, you know, insects. It also appeared on a Tom and Jerry episode, I believe, and many other people had, of course, covered this song, including Bruce Springsteen and Mike Oldfield. Interesting. Yeah, so that's a very old, ancient song, Froggy Went to Courtin'. And there you have it. So that's Good As I've Been to You. So let's talk about World Gone Wrong. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what kind of things I should say here. The cover was done by Anna Marie Velez Wood. It was taken in London, in Camden Town. That's cool. There is a painting by the Irish artist Peter Gallagher that was inspired by The Stranger by the French novelist Albert Camus. So of course this one was recorded in '93, and once again was recorded in Dylan's home in Malibu, just like Good As I've Been to You. It says here that Dylan used only one harmonica in C. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the 5 songs I chose from World Gone Wrong. And I'm probably going to have to choose the opening, just like Good As I've Been to You, World Gone Wrong. The recordings by the guitar and fiddle players, Mississippi Sheiks, in the first half of the 1930s have earned the group and their guitarist Sam Chapman a place comparable to that of Charlie Patton and Robert Johnston. So yeah, it was a 1930s song. Of course, covered by a few people, including mostly Nick Cave, famously, whatever. So that's the 5th one that I chose. Then I chose as my 4th song here is Broke Down Engine. Was written by Blind Willie McTell. Let's see. It was recorded first in 1931 for Columbia Records. Says here that it seems he plays on his 12-string Martin D35, even if the sound is not typical of this of guitar. Yeah, I do like that one. Also, by the way, from the first 3 volumes of Dylan's bootleg series, he did cover the song. He wrote the song called Blind Willie McTell, so that's why he kind of covered this song as a tribute or whatever. Okay, then I choose as my third song here is Stack o' Lee. Now, this is a pretty old song dating back to, the story kind of dates back to 1897. It was an old folk song. The song recounts the story of Lee Shelton, an African American originally from Texas who worked as coachman in St. Louis. In reality, most of his income came from gambling and other immoral activities. So it went from Stack-a-Lee to Stagger-Lee. And of course that became a really big hit for Lloyd Price, in 1959. And also Tommy Roe covered that song too as well. So of course Mississippi John Hurt recorded it as Stack-a-Lee. Okay, so we have, let's see, we had World Gone Wrong, Broke Down Engine, Stack-a-Lee. So now I got 2 more here. Probably the last 2 songs here. Jack-a-Roe. I really like this song. Jack-a-Roe is known in Anglo-Saxon countries under different titles such as Jack Monroe, Jack-a-Went-a-Sailing, and The Love of Polly and Jack Monroe. This traditional song, certainly of English origins, one of the ballads listed by Cecil Sharp in his famous and valuable book English Folk Songs from the Southern Appalachians, published in 1917. This song was inspired some beautiful adaptations by Joan Baez and the Grateful Dead as well. Yeah, it's a pretty good song. Tom Paley, he also did this song as well. Okay, then the last one is actually the last song on the album, which is called Lone Pilgrim. It says here that the Lone Pilgrim in the song is Joseph Thomas, who was born he was born in 1791 to 1835. Known for preaching in a simple white cassock in eastern Mississippi until he died of smallpox. The music originates in an old Scottish ballad, the Berets of Belutor, I believe, based on the Cleek song ballad Brunchen Breeren. The song was adapted by B.F. White, known for his compilation of songs and melodies in a book first published in 1844 under the title The Sacred Harp. So, it said here for Dylan, he has probably felt deeply the words of this beautiful ballad, and he expressed them with his heart, with superb guitar playing and subtle arrangements. He concludes his final foray in tradition, a foray started a year earlier with Good As I've Been to You. And that's my favorite from World Gone Wrong. And I think that's all. That's all I can kind of really say with these 2 albums. And I really want to, and I know I don't want to really put any Dylan fans you know, kind of make them feel a little down or whatever, is Dylan's voice is starting to, he's starting to have that gravelish. You know, you can definitely see that it's starting to hit him quite a bit. You know, he was, of course, he was very busy with that that big tour that he had down in the West Coast or whatever, and that kind of hurt his vocals pretty badly. So you can kind of hear a little bit of his, a little bit of the gruffness in his voice, But I do gotta say they're very underappreciated. These two albums here. Now, of course, he wouldn't do a whole another covers album until, well, pretty later on. I think it was like 2015, I believe. It was Stardust or something like that. But yeah, that's all I can say about Good As I've Been to You and World Gone Wrong. Pretty good albums, but I don't think I wouldn't really listen to them as maybe if some that actually love those albums. But that's all I can say. Good As I've Been to You, pretty good, and World Gone Wrong. And from there, of course, he comes out with he comes back. He has that MTV Unplugged. He has that MTV thing or whatever. And of course, he comes back with his resurgence and comes out with Time Out of Mind. That's going to be my next album to talk about. Great stuff. Great performing artist, Bob Dylan, right? Okay, folks, take care. Bye-bye.